Benjamin Netanyahu, already revealed that he had the plan to permanently militarily occupy the Gaza Strip, which they have entertained over and over again since October 8th, and virtually everyone said we were insane for this claim, right? And this past week, they officially announced it. And now this is the first Western press hit that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing. This is his revelation, okay?
At home 2 hours ago here in Jerusalem, I sat down with an exclusive interview with the Israeli Prime Minister.
You can unban
25 minutes on
He didn't
camera,
deserve a perma.
right before a significant meeting is about to happen. As you know, the fate of the hostages is still out there. As you know, there are allegations against this government for genocide and starvation. There are questions about his relationship with Donald Trump, even Vladimir Putin. Israel's long-term plans for Gaza and how they achieve a lasting peace is still an open question tonight. We mentioned we're almost 2 years into this war. This country's tired, but they're still fighting. Here now.
Yeah, dude, this framing is so psychotic because it presents Israel as the victims, okay? Like, they are this is a way to structure the conversation as though it's a David and Goliath situation where Israel is the David and not the Goliath, okay? Oh, they're so tired, but they're still fighting. It's like, bro, what do you mean? Oh, they're tired from murdering babies? Wow, dude, I'm so sad. I'm so fucking sad that Israel is too tired in its unlimited baby murder campaign. That is crazy. And this is, by the way, to this introduction is to the baby murderer himself revealing his final solution, like making it public knowledge in the Western world. That's how you're introducing the conversation, showing it as though Israel is the real victim here. Why? At first, it was victimized on October 7th, not because of the inevitable backlash that like its apartheid regime would withstand, but Israel is the victim on October 7th because of unlimited anti-Semitism, right? And now Israel is still the victim 22 months after October 7th, where they're just too tired to keep killing children and starving children. They're so tired. Holy fuck, dude. They are Nazi baby murderers.
The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, on all those topics and more. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for your time today.
Well, glad to see you again.
Thank you. After this interview, you will go immediately into a meeting with your security cabinet. Will Israel take control of all of Gaza?
We intend to, in order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza, and to pass it to civilian governance.
Brother, oh my Lord. Yeah, he's trying to liberate the Gazans, bro. Liberate them from their fucking bodies, okay? By killing them. This is illegal, by the way, under international law. Everything Israel does is illegal. Israel is an illegal entity, okay? Israel, in the way that it currently exists and has expanded so consistently, has violated numerous international laws. It does not matter. International law only matters as far as there is, people who are willing to entertain international law, to regulate it, okay? It's just ridiculous. International law is inconsequential. Can't wait to see all the Israel-Ukraine motherfuckers coming out against this like they did with Russia's invasion. Surely it will happen. No, they won't, because they're fucking dick riders of American imperialism and Western imperialism in general. Okay? It's, in the simplest terms, whatever America says goes. Okay? That's it. If America doesn't think what Israel's doing is bad, then it doesn't matter. Israel can do whatever the fuck it wants to. Yes, he wants the population to be free of Gaza. That's what it was a Freudian slip, but, it's more honest than anything else he said.
That is not Hamas and not anyone advocating the destruction of Israel. That's what we want to do. We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas. And you were in the Gaza Strip today. You met Palestinians who are fighting Hamas because finally they see that they have a future. They can rid themselves of this awful tyranny that not only holds our hostages, but holds 2 million Palestinians in Gaza hostage. That's got to end.
Are you saying today that you will take control of the entire 26-mile Gaza Strip, as it was 20 years ago to this month in 2005?
Well, we don't want to keep it. We want to have a security perimeter. We don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern it properly without threatening us and giving Gazans a good life. That's not possible with Hamas. The only way that you're going to have a different future is to get rid of this neo-Nazi army. The Hamas are monsters. Look at what they're doing to our people. Look at what they're doing to the way they massacred, raped, beheaded our people, our men and women, burned our babies. And they are really cruel to their own people, because when we try to take them away from the combat zones, they shoot them. They want people to be civilian casualties. They want a starvation policy that they themselves are trying to put into being, and we're doing everything to reverse that. They have to go. I think President Trump has said it. You have to see two things in Gaza. You have to see Hamas eliminated, and you have to have the hostages released. And he's absolutely right.
There are 20 hostages that the Israelis believe are still alive. And in recent events, the closer the IDF got to them, many of them were killed. Are you prepared for that?
We're doing everything in our power to salvage the hostages. We've, in the beginning, the second day of the war, I think, a senior command official in Israel said, you're going to have to get used to the idea that we're not going to see any of them alive. And I said, no, I don't agree with that. I think with a combination of the right military tactics and international pressure, we can get all of them, and certainly most of them, out. So far, we got out of 255, we've got 205 released, 148 of them are alive. Nobody believed that. And I believe we can get the others, but we have to combine the right tactics, military tactics. Without military pressure, nothing works.
Yesterday, I spoke with Laron Berman.
Once again, the only successful hostage extraction, with one exception, has been through the process of hostage negotiations. Okay? Anyway, Hamas has responded to Benjamin Netanyahu's claims, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's continue.
Two brothers.
Yes.
His family believes they are still alive. He said the following: my advice to you, speaking to the Prime Minister, by all means necessary, we need to bring them back for stability in the region, for the future of Israel. It's a tough decision, but we will handle everything, meaning Israel. What do you say to the family?
I tried to mention this yesterday, but we'll see how successful they are in their attempt to occupy all of Gaza when they are being forced to make reserve battalions with soldiers up to 50 years old due to lack of manpower. I know. They can't do that without forcibly conscripting the Haredi population, which will cause tremendous internal strife in Israel, in Israeli politics, because the Orthodox will say, fuck no, okay? And even with the Haredi population that is even less trained than the average diaper force military commander who gets fucking smoked because they can't stop smoking cigarettes right next to a goddamn window in clear sight of a Palestinian Islamic Jihad or Al-Qassam Brigade sniper in the immediate vicinity. So they have to get American contractors to make up for that lack of experience that they have. There's just no way, I think, there's just no way that Israel could just maintain a permanent occupation of the Gaza Strip. I mean, it's tiny. The Gaza Strip is a tiny sliver of land. So I guess it's not as difficult as Russia permanently occupying the entirety of Ukraine, or even the eastern Ukrainian territories for a decent number of years. But even then, they just can't do that without full ethnic cleansing, which is why I think they are trying to do full ethnic cleansing. At most, they will try to turn the Gaza Strip into a West Bank style structure with a civil governance division that is tied to Israel in the same way that the Palestinian Authority is, okay? And then continue whatever the fuck they're doing in the West Bank, in Gaza, which is, pogroms, more land acquisition, and the inevitable expulsion of every single person. They did it pre-2003, and they were doing all right, killing Palestinians daily. I know, but the difference is, post-2005, there is a decent amount of militancy that has grown, okay? That's a major difference. You're talking about a time when Palestinians, a decent number of Palestinians still were holding on to some semblance of hope in the negotiations process. It was coming to a close. This was the end stage of what the so-called peace process was looking like. Having said that, there wasn't as much militancy. That's the reason why Hamas was able to gain so much prominence in the elections, because they were a militant force and they were seen as uncorrupted by Israeli influence, as opposed to Fatah, because Fatah was the Palestinian Authority, and the Palestinian Authority is a part of the Israeli security apparatus. So that is the reason why Hamas even won the elections to begin with. And I think the environment, the dynamic has changed so much more than that. Do you think they're also doing this to hide the actual death toll once this genocide is over? Yes. That is the major reason. As I said time and time again, Israel cannot do a permanent ceasefire because once the dust settles and there are inevitably there are going to be Western forces that intervene. There's going to be Western journalists that go in. There's going to be Western investigators that go in. And when the dust settles and they see the true magnitude of this genocide, it's fucking over. It will be super over for Israel. It's already over for Israel, but it'll be even more over than it ever was before. And that is precisely the reason why they cannot do a ceasefire. That's why they don't want to do a ceasefire. That's why I've said it over and over again. A permanent ceasefire spells doom for Israel, and that's why they won't do it. What will happen as a consequence for Israel, though? I mean, we have significant limitations in what kind of will that we can impose on our politicians because, as I've said over and over again, there is no real democracy in America. Or what people think is the democratic process is simply a ruse, okay? And I think either people recognize that and then continue the pressure campaign to a degree where it becomes like untenable and unsustainable by American interests, so they have to like create a, like release a pressure valve or diminish our unlimited loyalty to Israel a little bit.
People say you can't both release the hostages and eliminate Hamas, and I disagree. I think so far we've shown that we can, and I intend to complete the job. But we have three missions. One, to eliminate the Hamas as a governing and military power in Gaza. Otherwise, there's no future for anyone. And we'll have many more kidnappings and many more hostages. Second, achieve the liberation of all our hostages. And third, make sure that Gaza doesn't pose a threat to Israel again. And we're well on our way to achieve all three. Now,
this is why I get mad about the Israeli security argument. Like, oh, Israel can never be secure unless like Palestine is a state. This is what pisses me off about this, because that's the argument that they make. If the security of Israel is your primary fucking concern, or is even a remote concern at all, then that means you're open to potentially an unlimited death and destruction campaign in Gaza, because that will also offer permanent security to the state of Israel. You know, it's just you guys want the same things. Benjamin Netanyahu has a different method. That's it. Is this in Pam Bondi's office? No, that's Benjamin Netanyahu's wife. I have the Palestinian resistance with all its factions united on the battlefield, and any occupation decision will be returned to where it came from. Defeated and broken as always. The enemy is deluded if it thinks it will release its prisoners from our grip by military force, and we affirm that its prisoners will only be released through the gate of negotiations at a high price. The threat of a full military occupation in Gaza is a declaration of genocidal intentions and a desperate attempt to subjugate our people and resistance, intentions that will not pass without a heavy price, and the field will be the decisive factor as always. It's true, the field is the decisive factor. And in spite of the overwhelming force that the Israeli genocidal forces have demonstrated time and time again, they have had their shit pushed in over and over again. They keep getting smoked. This is a completely diminished force, a completely diminished resistance force on the ground, and they're still able to fucking incur penalties. They're still able to deliver penalties to the Israeli diaper brigade. Okay? It's crazy. Now think about that resistance network continuing to exist. Think about that resistance network continuing to exist while Israel tries to do a military occupation. It's fucking reservists are killing themselves with regular frequency every fucking week because they're like, we killed too many children and I can't deal with it any longer. I'm going to kill myself. And now your numbers are diminishing. The enthusiasm for the unlimited baby murder is going away because people are too scared to continue doing baby murder because there are repercussions for it. They also realize that when you do that baby murder and you then fucking fly out of Israel to go somewhere because you want to go to Megaloth or whatever, okay, or when you want to go to Greece or whatever, people look at you and go, you were in the IDF? Oh, so you're a baby killer. And they don't like that either because Israeli society has broadly enjoyed being Western aligned, okay, since its fucking inception. That's the only way that you can get people to go and live in Israel and then travel freely to the Western world to the best of their ability, okay? But now, if they can't do that, now if there's an academic boycott, for example, all of a sudden, all of the prestigious Israeli institutes fall apart. And that causes people to be like, I'm not Israeli. I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? That really gums up the works for the Zionist project. When you got people who are embarrassed to be Israeli, when you get people who are scared to admit that they are from Israel, because Israel is a fucking Nazi country. And now the world is aware of it. The global South was always aware of it, but now even the Western world and the Western populations are aware of it. So you can't, the cat's out of the fucking bag. You cannot try to implement a censorship regime to forcibly make people like Israel. It's just not going to happen.
Difficulties because there's so much vilification and misrepresentation in the press. There's an attempt to put blame on Israel for the interdiction of humanitarian supplies that Hamas is interdicting, and Israel is the international community is delivering the blame to Israel. They're doing everything to rob these food trucks. They're taking the food for themselves and then jacking up the price for the remaining supplies to their own population. That's monstrous.
We have seen some of that, and you're right about that. And you're also right that we went into Gaza while we've been here this week, and we were in the southern town of Rafah near the Sinai Desert in Egypt, and that town has been flattened. And you have been accused of genocide. How do you respond to that?
Well, if as Ambassador Huckabee said, if we're practicing genocide, we're surely doing a very bad job of it, because we could have, basically eliminated the entire population of Gaza, but we went the other direction. We did something that no army in history ever did. We're supplying humanitarian food to
There was one army that did that. The Nazis, the
enemy's population, because we distinguish between combatants and non-combatants. We put in 2 million tons of food. I mean, if we wanted to commit genocide.
It's not even you giving the food, by the way. You are not letting the food in. So when you say, oh, we're delivering the food, he means like we're just letting in crumbs of food that the international community has sent in.
We wouldn't give 2 million tons of food to the population. And also the reason you see the flattened buildings is because Hamas booby traps every single building. So when we come in, we first have the population moved, even though Hamas tries to keep them in the combat zones. But after they move and we start to move into the neighborhoods that are now populated only by terrorists, they ignite these booby traps. So what we do is we put in an APC, an armored personnel carrier, with a lot of explosives, detonate it. It sets off all the booby traps, and the buildings begin to collapse as a result of that. They're empty buildings. They're not populated buildings. Secondly, they've built this underground terror tunnel network with billions of dollars that they had. They didn't build Gaza up. They built a Gaza terror city underground. So we now detonate the tunnel.
Fox not fact check any of this? Bro, CNN doesn't even fact check this. Why would Fox? Like, every single thing he's saying is insane and completely wrong, okay? Is there a tunnel system under Gaza? Absolutely. That's how the fucking militants are smoking the Israeli troops. Except, once again, you don't have any right to keep killing Gazans. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Oh, there's a terror system. There's a terror tunnel system underneath. Okay, you have one too. The fuck do you mean? Do we just nuke Tel Aviv then? What are you talking about? Oh, our big, beautiful, strong boys are inside of the APC carriers, bro. They're inside of the APCs and they're getting their shit smoked, turning into a fucking $10 million coffin for them. Yeah, there's a reason Netanyahu is so eager to give interviews to Fox News whenever he has to manufacture consent for the next atrocity he's planning. It's because he knows nobody at Fox will ask any hard-hitting questions or call him out for peddling misinformation. To be fair, I don't think even fucking CNN would do that, but... The
tunnels explode, and they take down the buildings that are above the tunnels. And the reason you see this devastation is not because Israel is wiping out these structures filled with civilians. It's because they've been booby-trapped by Hamas, and that's the kind of warfare that we have to win.
I'm hearing you say that...
Man, it's so difficult. Okay, fuck off. I have a good solution to this. Fuck off, okay?
You deny this charge of genocide.
Totally.
That's what you're saying.
Totally.
But last week, and you referred to it a few moments ago, President Trump mentioned the word starvation. And he pretty much said it is what it is from his observation, looking at video and pictures. Were you surprised by that?
No, look, I think President Trump has been terrific. He's supported us in so many ways. And he understands that we have to get rid of Hamas. He understands that Hamas is also using their own interdiction tactics to prevent humanitarian aid going. So there's been shortages, no question about that. There's been also suffering. And what I intend to do with President Trump, we talked about that and agreed upon that, is to have to overcome this with a humanitarian surge. So we're opening up safe routes through which aid trucks can go through. We're going to try to quadruple the distribution points that are manned by Americans. And they're doing a hell of a job distributing food to Gazans without Hamas taking over the food. And that's really what we're doing. And airdrops that we intend to do, we're already doing. And we invite other countries to join us. So
I guess it's important to see how he's lying. I don't even know how to I don't know where to begin. Airdrops are not a sustainable way to deliver aid. Okay. The international humanitarian organizations have all criticized the aid drops as the only aid delivery mechanism. As I already explained, there are 400 aid distribution sites inside of the Gaza Strip that were operated by the United Nations. Okay. There are thousands of trucks lined up outside of the Gaza Strip, filled to the brim with aid, waiting to be delivered. Israel is refusing to deliver this aid. They're just sending moldy bread and crumbs of food so that the international community can do a PR initiative and to allow Israel to continue its starvation, allow Israel to continue its genocide. The idea that they are going to permanently occupy the Gaza Strip militarily is, and openly admitting to that, is just an active recognition of the final solution. There is no permanent military occupation of the Gaza Strip by the Israeli state. This would be tremendously bloody for all of the Israeli military. They have to do this after genociding the entire Palestinian population. There's no other way that they can do this. And I suspect, and I mean, it's not even a suspicion at this point. We're seeing it unfold in broad daylight. They are trying to ethnically cleanse the entirety of the Strip. They're trying to kill as many Palestinians as they possibly can without basically a demand. They are trying to play this song and dance in an effort to not have Western leadership basically say, we're going to invade Israel militarily. What the fuck are you doing? There is a permission structure that is consistently expanding. Okay. And Israel is certainly doing everything it can to create this new permission structure. And that's why, even though they said they were doing a genocide from the jump, now they're openly recognizing that at this point, because after 22 months and no significant repercussions from any of these Western allies that supposedly care about human rights, they've realized no one's going to say anything. They don't even need to do PR. They've never had to do PR, and they realize that they don't even need to do active PR for this shit. Israel recognizes that they have complete command over the situation, and no one in the Western world is actually going to do anything to put an end to it. Okay? That's why they have this comfort. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu is comfortable enough to go on Fox News to say, we're doing it. We're doing the full genocide. We're doing the full occupation because Hamas, because Hamas, because Hamas. Everything is because of Hamas. You don't need to, even if you look at this and it pisses you off, what the fuck are you going to do about it is the attitude. Okay?
Israel that's doing now, and has been doing for some time, an effort to give humanitarian aid to the population without letting the Hamas terrorists take it, steal it for themselves.
Has President Trump given the green light for your plan to take over the remaining 25% of Gaza and occupy all of it?
Well, he understands that it's Israel who's going to do the fighting. It's not American soldiers.
Did he give you a yes?
Well, he just says, no, Israel will do what it has to do, and we haven't got into that kind of discussion. But we have gone into a discussion on two things. One,
believe it or not, the Trump admin plans to further increase the reality distortion field. The Trump admin plans to dramatically cut criticism of human rights abuses in Russia, Israel, and El Salvador in the upcoming State Department reports. The Post compared drafts to past reports. It's just, how long are they going to pretend that Israel's still doing the right thing after they kill the last person from Gaza? I think at a certain point, we have to recognize that, these guys are bad guys. That's it. I normally don't fall into the good-bad dynamic, but the American politicians are evil people, okay? They are. They're evil. They're straight up fucking evil. They are Nazi collaborators. Israel is a Nazi country. Israel's actions are akin to the Holocaust, and American politicians who are refusing to listen to the cries of the Palestinian children and refusing to listen to the cries of their own constituents are Nazi collaborators. They're looking at all of this anger, all of this resentment, and turning a blind eye to it all. and saying, well, sorry, we have to participate in this process. I can't hear you.
Humanitarian surge that we're going to do, which will precede our final military action, because I want the population to be in safe zones, to have food, water, sewage, electricity, medical help. I want to free 2 million Gazans from Hamas terrorism. The second thing that we agree on is that the day after has to have certain principles. I'm not talking about a detailed plan yet because I think that'll be developed, but the 5 principles, the key principles are these. 1, Hamas has to lay down its arms. 2, Gaza has to be demilitarized. 3, all the hostages have to be released. And 4, Israel will be responsible for overall security. So if there's an attempt to have a resurgence,
like every single thing that he just brought up, with the exception of like allowing Israel to continue doing its genocide and occupy Gaza militarily, okay? And also the demilitarization side, which is insane. It's an insane demand to make while you're in the process of doing a fucking genocide. It's also an impossible demand to make in general. People are always going to take up arms against Israel, understandably. They have every right to do so. It is within their legal right to do so. It is their moral right to do so, okay? Like with those 2 major exceptions, everything that he just described is literally the Hamas proposal. But of course, as time has moved on, Benjamin Netanyahu just kept adding additional qualifiers to it because he has no interest in actually coming to a reasonable conclusion here. He doesn't want a cessation of hostilities because he's fucking terrified that once the dust settles and people realize the true magnitude of his genocide, it's over. What I actually fear is maybe it's not over after the dust settles. What I actually fear is that like Western journalists go in, they cover it. All of these like humanitarian rights organizations go in and they cover the full magnitude, the full scale of the atrocities. The media still tries to do a pressure campaign, a censorship campaign, and people still go along with that same, now even more expanded permission structure for Israel. That is what I'm actually worried about. But I know that in his calculation, Benjamin Netanyahu worries that when they see the true magnitude, it will be undeniable that Israel has committed a genocide. And at that stage, I think the global community will take action against Israel. That is what he fears.
Hamas or resurgent terrorism, we're the ones who are going to take care of it. And 5, let Gaza be governed by a civilian authority that is not Israel, because I don't want to occupy Gaza forever. I don't want to govern Gaza. I want to have a different governance there that basically is willing to live in peace with Israel and give Gazans a different future. That's entirely different.
When I say, for the record, when I say like when the dust settles and people start seeing it, it'll become like even more undeniable. And you go, everybody already knows this. Yeah, except everybody already knew this a year ago. But look at the broader public sentiment now as opposed to a year ago. So things do actually move in the direction of the truth when it comes to Israel's actions.
Me too, by the international press that doesn't care to check the facts. It just takes Hamas statistics, Hamas arguments. It just swallows them hook, line, and sinker, and delivers this vilification of the one democracy, the one Jewish state that is fighting people massacred. It's the equivalent of the massacre of thousands and thousands of Americans, the rocketing of American cities. Nobody would stand.
Hi, Hassan. You talk a lot about the Israel-Gaza war, but I just wanted to know what you think Israel should do from this current situation. I'm assuming it's understood that you can't leave the kidnapped children of Israel and Gaza unless there's a part of your solution. I think it's a really difficult question, mainly because of the fuck situation. I really want to hear your take. It's not a fuck situation. Israel's doing a genocide and using the hostages cynically to fucking propagandize to continue doing its genocide. It's killed a fuck ton of hostages in the process. The children of Israel that are still, the kidnapped children of Israel that you're referencing are literally kidnapped from a tank and shit at this point. The only remaining quote unquote hostages are actually prisoners of war. They are military members. Okay, not that it fucking matters because Israel doesn't give a shit about that. The Israeli government certainly doesn't give a shit about that. They've bombed the hostages. They fucking bombed the prisoners of war. They have starved the prisoners of war. They have starved them all the same as though they are regular old Palestinian citizens. Okay, the idea that this is a complex situation is ridiculous. It is not a complex situation at all. You're only trying to add complexity because it doesn't correspond to everything that you have been taught about a genocide, everything that you've taught about like a country conducting a genocide like this. Okay, it's not a complex situation at all. Hamas has brought forward numerous proposals at this point. Israel could have abided by any number of different ones. America has even added some moderate pressure, okay, upon Israel, but not enough. And the only solution here is to end the genocide. Hamas has already suggested that they would disband and dissolve. But in order for Palestinians to have sovereignty, they have to have a standing military. They have to have a standing military, and they have to have full sovereignty and take control over their own governance. There is nothing complicated about this. Hamas is just being used as a fucking scapegoat. It's that simple.
Come back to my experience inside Gaza this week. We went to an aid distribution site, food distribution site. Your own soldiers have been accused of killing innocent Gazans. Part of it, Mossab, who are in line for food. That's the accusation, almost on a daily basis. Can you defend that?
Yeah, I could deny it because it's a Hamas accusation. They're the ones often who are doing the shooting and waiting for our soldiers to respond. And in fact, very often they don't respond. But all these stories are repeated ad nauseum, and the people don't even bother to check the facts. We're doing everything that we can to avoid civilian casualties. And in fact, if you look at it, I mean, the town of Rafah that you saw all that, right?
All of it.
Right, okay. So I told you why there was devastation, because we moved the population out and then went to and dealt with the booby traps that were there. And we killed a lot of terrorists there. You know how many civilians we killed there? Practically none. Why?
It's just everything he's saying is a lie. They leveled Rafah. They leveled every part of Gaza. They leveled it so much that they wanted it to be illegal for the aid distribution planes to have journalists on them to show the full magnitude of the death and destruction, which once again, the aid drops, and the planes do not even show the full scale of the death and destruction. He just keeps saying, everyone that we kill is Hamas. That's it. That's it.
Because we told them, please leave. We showered them with leaflets. We called them millions of text messages and many other means to get them out, and they walked out. They walked out 2 miles to the coast where they had a safe zone, and practically no civilians were killed. That nobody describes, nobody talks about. Israel is doing things that no army in history has done.
There's one army, once again. One army. The Nazi army. They did that, They did that. It's not like a one-to-one comparison, but the motivating factors here are the same. A completely ridiculous ideology of ethno-religious supremacy and an exterminationist campaign to destroy the land, to rid the land of all of its inhabitants that do not subscribe to that ethno-religious ideology, ethno-religious supremacist ideology. Yeah, the fucking Nazis did that. And it's crazy that this motherfucker basically looked at that and was like, oh, this is a checklist for me, actually. It wasn't like an event, a horrifying dark chapter of history to learn an incredibly important lesson from. It was a checklist. He was like, oh yeah, can't wait to do this to a totally other random group of people now, So did the Turks too. Yeah, they did. Dumb fuck. Who the fuck's defending that? Am I? You know who is defending that? Or at least turning a blind eye to it? Fucking Israel. Suck my dick. What do you mean? So did the Americans. Okay? The point is, you can't point to it happening in the past and be like, this was actually really fucked up when they were doing it, but when Israel's doing it, it's all right because they did it in the past too. The point is to learn from those lessons and not learn the lesson of what to do and basically do the exact same shit that the fucking Nazis were doing. The lesson is to never do that. Never allow this to happen.
Colonel John Spencer, who's the head of urban warfare studies at West Point, he said that he scoured all of his modern history. He said no army in the world has done that. And yet Israel is, of course, accused again and again and again by fake reports, by Hamas statistics that are fake.
Hamas statistics, Hamas.
If you repeat a lie often enough, it assumes the cachet of self-evident truth. It's still a lie.
Yeah. Your chief of army says your military is exhausted. It's almost 2 years of war. And I mentioned 20 years ago this month, Ariel Sharon made the decision to get out of Gaza, bring the settlers out, and it's been that way ever since, and Hamas moved in. But you have 10 million people who live in this country.
That's right.
And they have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, well, it's a democracy,
Is it possible for you to keep Israel unified
That's part of democracy. I accept it, although a lot of it is foreign funded by the same people who also encourage the demonstrations on your campuses and so on. But I'll tell you one thing, the people are united. Not every last one. This is not a dictatorship. But, you know, when it's a seven front war, and look at what we did. You know, we were attacked. We were on the verge. Everybody thought this is the end of Israel on October 7th, when Hamas cruelly invaded us and those monsters took the hostages and murdered the men and raped the women and beheaded, it's beyond belief, and burned babies, okay? And everybody said, oh, Israel is gone. And I said on the second day of the war, I said, we're going to change the face of the Middle East. And we went against Hamas, then we went against Hezbollah, the terror proxies of Iran. Then we had the downfall of the Assad, the murderous Assad regime in Syria. And then we went after Iran, and President Trump joined us, which was a magnificent act of solidarity against a common enemy. Everybody said, oh, well, you know, Israel is not going to be together, but it is. Now we have to complete the job of eliminating basically the last proxy of Iran that's still standing.
And this is your job to sell it to your people.
Well, I don't have to. Believe me, the people are selling it to me. You know, I go into Gaza as you went in. You've been to Rafah? I've been to Rafah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Talk to the soldiers. Talk to the division commanders. You know what they tell me? They tell me, Prime Minister, don't bother with the press. Just press on with the mission of liberating Gaza from these murderers. And we can do the job. We can separate the civilians from the combatants. We can eliminate Hamas. We can liberate the remaining hostages. Let us do the job. That's what the soldiers that cut across Israeli society are telling us. Doesn't mean that they make it to the mainstream channels. Doesn't mean that they make it to the foreign press. In fact, they don't. But if I had to run the country based on these vilifications, you know, I shouldn't be here. Because leaders should do what is right. What is right and what will withstand the test of time. And what will withstand the test of time is that in an hour of peril, Israel didn't slumber like other democracies often do. In the face of this challenge to our existence, we took on a seven-front war, won it, and secured the peace, and expanded the peace after this victory, expanding the Abraham Accords, creating a different Middle East. That's what we're in the process of doing.
This is why I said what I said about the Nelk boys. Like, this is why I said what I said to the Nelk boys. This conversation taking place is even more damaging than the fucking Nelk boys' stupidity here, okay? This is a reputable media institution. Reputable. It's not, but it's reputable for your dumb fuck parents, unfortunately. And no pushback whatsoever, just a continuous stream of fucking lies. Just like the Nelk boys did. But this time it's an adult. It's an adult with influence over your parents.
The last part is hard, but it's doable, and we'll do it.
Let me come back to the Abraham Accords, because the president made news on that earlier today. In America, there has been a considerable rise in anti-Semitism, especially on American
Nelk boys are adults too. Yeah, but they carry themselves as man-children.
college campuses.
Yeah.
How did Israel, especially for Americans under the age of 30, young Americans, how did Israel lose this argument? Or maybe the better question would be, how do you win them back?
Well, I think we will. First of all, you win by winning and shortening the war. And President Trump has given us the support to finish this war as quickly as possible. Of course, we have to contend with a campaign of vilification that is done by so-called reputable news media. I mean, the New York Times puts out a major story on the front page, Palestinian mother holding a child, starved supposedly, and then it turns out that that child has cerebral palsy. It's a congenital disease. He has a brother who's well-fed, family is well-fed, but it's put out this thing, and then it corrects it with a denial the size of a postage stamp buried in the back pages. No, we can't work by lies. How do we win? Eventually the truth gets out. It takes time. People will see the humanitarian surge. People will see our efforts to prevent civilian casualties. People will compare what has happened here to other urban warfare sites that were not nearly as dense, as difficult without this,
Brother, other urban warfare sites still allowed journalists without murdering them. You know, they did murder some journalists. America certainly did, famously. But they still let, like, most Western press operate. Israel has not. I wonder why. I wonder if this is, like, a little bit different than regular war, which is already filled to the brim with crimes. If Israel was simply doing a just war with some crimes, or even an unjust war with some crimes that's associated with it, they wouldn't have to have this massively censorious regime.
50 meters below ground, these terror tunnels, and yet Israel will triumph, will succeed in this mission. And most of the people, I can't say 100% of the people, but most of the people are united. And ultimately, this is democracy.
So instead of shifting that argument on the media, whether it's the New York Times or maybe the Gazan Health Ministry, putting out, because you've said repeatedly in this conversation that they exaggerate, will you allow more independent reporters to go into Gaza and see it for themselves?
That's my conclusion. In fact, that's my instruction as of this morning to the military. And I said, that's exactly what you should be doing. Those who are lying are going to continue lying. But give honest journalists the ability to see the truth. The fact that we're trying to get civilian aid, humanitarian aid to the
Also, now he'll let journalists in. He won't, by the way. Newsflash, he's not going to do that. What he means is he'll allow those fucking freaks. He'll allow those freaks that have consistently defended Israel to do the same IDF escort with full editorial control. Remember, with full military censor, full editorial control, he will maybe allow some figures, just like they did in the past, like Douglas Murray, to go in and do stunts.
People of Gaza, the efforts that we're making there. To understand and explain why those buildings are destroyed, because they're booby-trapped, and we clear the population. And I'm glad you were in. I'm glad you did this thing. I'm glad, in fact, I would say you were blazing the trail. But there have been others, and we have the same result. Every time people see it, they see it in a more realistic way, in a more honest way, in the way that it's presented in, unfortunately, in the New York Times and others. New York Times should be sued. I'm actually looking at whether a country can sue.
Dude, every defender of Israel has one speed. Overly litigious crybabies. Mods, overly litigious crybabies who complain constantly that the world won't just say thank you for fucking genociding children. I do not know how a publication could be more pro-Israel while still maintaining a shred, or still trying to maintain a shred of institutional credibility. The New York Times has already dropped all of its institutional credibility because of its unlimited defense of Israel.
The New York Times, and I'm looking into it right now because I think it's such clear defamation. I mean, you put a picture of a child that's supposed to then represent all these supposedly starving children, yet they put in this picture of a child who has cerebral palsy. Then they took another picture somewhere else in other media, a child who had cystic fibrosis, got nothing to do with starvation, or another child that we actually sent to Italy to be cured. And Israel is accused.
But still, you concede there is suffering on behalf of people
suffering
in Gaza.
Yes, because Hamas is interdicting aid, exactly. And what we're doing is overcoming it. I don't deny that there's suffering. I want to end the suffering. And I want to end it by ending Hamas rule. Would you like to be governed by 20,000 armed monsters who shoot you in the back of the head if you try to leave a war zone, who shoot you if you say, I want to have my freedom from Hamas? We now have Gazans fighting Hamas. They finally have the courage to do that because they see that Israel is progressing and they think that we're going to win. So they're not afraid anymore to stand up for their own rights. And they have their separate schools, they have separate programs because they don't want to educate their children for endless fanatic warfare, which is what Hamas is teaching. Hamas is saying death to Israel, death to America. They hate everything that a free society stands for. And ultimately, the people of Israel understand it. And I think ultimately, the free peoples of the world will understand it.
I have one more question, but I want to clarify something if I could.
Sure.
You've said a few times now that the buildings in Rafah that we saw had tunnels underneath them.
Yeah.
There's no way for us to see that when we're there physically with our own eyes, but you're saying all these buildings were booby-trapped?
Oh.
And they were not hit by the Israeli Air Force?
No, what I'm saying is
because
that
it is building after building.
Well, these
house after house.
Remember, these houses are emptied of population. In the beginning,
Man, how convenient, dude. They just had to blow up all those buildings. And it was actually Hamas that blew up the buildings. That's the argument. It's such an insane claim that even Fox News is like, come on, man.
the war, I remember my visit to Washington, and I was told under the previous administration, they said, there are 1.4 million people in Gaza, in Rafah, because we moved the population away from war zones, and they all concentrated in Rafah. Then we wanted to eliminate Rafah. It's like, we were told, don't go in there. And I said,
we wanted to eliminate Rafah.
It's like the Allies are, take over Germany, and finally they're told, don't go into Berlin, don't go into Berlin and leave the German army, 25% of the German army intact. I said, of course I have to go in. But they said, but there are all these civilians. And I said, okay, we'll make sure that they leave. In fact, they left within 6 days. They all left. And then we had to go in. It's full of terrorists in those buildings, in the streets. They booby-trap the streets. They booby-trap the buildings. So we go in and clear it away. And that's what you would do. That's what you did. That's what you did in your war zones too.
The reason why this point is important for me to understand is we only saw one part of Gaza. We did not see the rest of it, the town of Rafah, as I referred. Last question, sir, if I could, please. The president earlier today put on Truth Social that he wants all the Middle Eastern countries to join the Abraham Accords. Who are the holdouts?
Well, you know who we have peace with. So if you look at the other countries, they're the ones that are potential and real potential candidates for this. And I think, look, the president and I joined forces with Arab leaders and had the Abraham Accords, which were historic changes, a real change in the Middle East. We had 4 peace treaties with 4 Arab nations in a very short time. And in fact, I think that the attack on October 7th, among other things, it was meant to destroy Israel, but it was also meant to destroy the possibility of peace between Israel and the leading Arab country, Saudi Arabia. So obviously we like to see, with the elimination of Hamas and the Iran terror axis, which has been our war. Our war the last 2 years has not been with Hamas only, it's been with Iran and all its terror proxies and its attempts to develop nuclear weapons.
Other than Iran, who would be a party to this deal?
Well, Iran could be too if the people of Iran rise.
Is that an invitation?
It's been something that I think that many of them want. Many of them want to relieve themselves of that tyranny. And they openly say, you know, I send videos to them and I'm amazed. Bill, I'm amazed. Millions and millions of respondents from Iran, sometimes with their names and even their faces. You can't believe that they're doing that, but it shows you the thirst for liberation there. So, but if the liberation of Iran will happen, it'll happen because we delivered a very strong blow to Iran's seeming invincibility, and the people will rise from within. But who are the countries that we know we could make peace with once we finish the war in Gaza? Yeah. I think there are at least 5 or 6 countries here in the Middle East. And President Trump and I have talked about it a great deal. And he's been just an unbelievable partner.
When did you talk to him last?
A few days ago.
Okay, so this week?
No, I think it was last week, I think. But we talk every week or so.
You talked to Vladimir Putin recently?
Yes.
A couple times?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
Well, I can tell you what I told him. I said that I took note of the fact that he said that Iran should not have nuclear enrichment, which is the American position, and our position. I thought that was very good. And I also said that I hoped that he'd come to an agreement with President Trump.
On Ukraine.
Right.
Why is he so bad at propaganda? Because he doesn't need to be good. Again, what are you going to do about it? There's nothing we can do about it. Also, defending Israel's monstrous actions at this stage is virtually impossible. Like, there is no expert level propaganda that you can craft. Like, the best possible thing that they could do is probably obfuscate, deny, shut off internet, which is what they're doing already, but information is still coming out. So at that point, what are you supposed to do? People see fucking dead children and shit, starving children, and all they can do is, oh, well, Hamas killed them. That's it. That's the only thing you have. The only thing you have at your disposal is but Hamas. And he just keeps saying it over and over again. The interview is just letting him talk with no pushback. I know, but the situation is so fucking defensible that it doesn't even matter that there's no pushback, because the average person that's even a little bit knowledgeable on this goes, oh, this is fucking bullshit. Like, I don't think that the but Hamas narrative is working, even amongst a population of Americans that fucking actively despise Muslims and Arabs and is like, so scary. Hamas is so scary. I don't think it's working. There are plenty of people that were horrified after October 7 that were going, yeah, do as much death and destruction, that are now turning around and be like, yeah, this is fucked up.
We'll see if we get that piece.
Yep.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So far as we can tell, it's the first time he's been asked directly about the allegations of genocide and also the allegations of starvation in Gaza. While that's happening...
No, the Nelk Boys did it first. And not only that, but the response was the same. And you also, just like the Nelk Boys, didn't give him any pushback.